So you have an employee that's not working out and you're looking for their replacement actively. Should you keep that non-performing employee until you find their replacement? Well, that's what I want to talk about in this week's tip. All right, so before I start off on this, the first thing I should hit you with is a bit of a disclaimer. I am not an employment attorney. So, and employment law varies state to state. You might even be watching this from outside the United States, in which case your countries or provinces, if you're in Canada, employment laws may be different. So I would always ensure with anything with regards to personnel that I have a decent employment attorney on my team that I not necessarily hired, but that you work with, that you can ask questions like this. What I'm going to be sharing with you today is a little bit more of our opinion or viewpoint on this. Take it as you will, but obviously seek the proper advice when you need it. All right, so you have this employee, they're not working out. You're thinking you're going to have to let them move on, but you don't want to have nobody in the position. Let's say it's a receptionist, okay? So you're actively looking for somebody else to fill this position. Meanwhile, you're wondering, should I keep this receptionist or not? And look, I've seen iterations of this in just about every shape or form you could imagine over the last 20 plus years. I've seen it where someone is actively looking for a replacement, hires the replacement without telling the employee that they're being replaced, and has that employee train their replacement. So the first question I would ask in this situation is, why are you replacing the employee? Most likely, if you want to replace somebody, ideally, you're ranking people based on their performance. Ideally, a job is not even ideally, a job should be performance-based. Is the person actually doing the job? That's generally how we do things here at MGE and what we advise our clients to do. Everything is performance-based. If the person's performing, great. So obviously, if you're looking at replacing this person, I'm suspecting it's because you're not happy with their performance. So my first question to you, before you even start looking for a replacement, is, have you spoken to the employee to tell them that you are unhappy with their performance? In a lot of cases, I've seen where that has not happened. This employee is non-performing, and the employer is unhappy, and they're not saying anything to the person. They just decided, you know what, X this person, I'm getting somebody else. In my opinion, that is wrong, okay? And again, in my opinion. The way I operate, I would never want somebody to be surprised that they are being let go. There's been a number of conversations that have occurred before they're going to be let go. Unless it's something just horrifically egregious. They just yelled at a patient or assaulted somebody or, something terrible, right? Or they stole from the practice. Fine, I get it. But if it's something where you're not happy with how your receptionist is doing their job, you should be speaking to this person and letting them know, look, you're not performing, here's what's going on, I need you to fix this, or this may not work out. Now, why? Well, on the one hand, it's the humane and correct thing to do. Again, in my opinion. People, when they get a job, tend to build their life around that job. They're looking for an apartment or a house close to their job. They're looking, and the supermarkets associated with that and everything else. They're building their life around their job because they're spending a third of their life at that job. So if it's not going to be working out for this person, I think it's unfair to not give them a hint that it's not working out. Because also, if you talk to them and it's not working out, there's always a chance that they'll improve. Maybe it's something that they just misunderstood. Maybe it's something that you need to train them on. That is the fair thing to do. So again, I never want somebody to be surprised that they're being let go. We've had numerous conversations about things that need to be improved, and they're reasonable, what I'm talking to them about. I'm not being, ridiculous about it. There are certain things that are just considered part of the job, and they're just not doing them correctly. They've answered the phone incorrectly for the 27th time, and I've taught them how to answer it correctly over and over and over and over again, and they're just not improving. Well, they know about it, and then finally when they do it that last time, they know, yeah, okay, it's time to pull the plug on this, and they understand. It's usually not as big of an upset at that point because they saw it coming. So if you have somebody that you're looking to replace, in my opinion, they should see it coming, again, of course, unless it's something crazy and egregious like we talked about. Now, on the flip side of that, let's say it's an employee that's been there for 2 or 3 days. And you've had them working, and you can just see this isn't going to work, and you've decided, you know what, I'm just going to be done with this. Fine. They're new in the job. They probably realized it wasn't working out. It's time to let go. And keep in mind, too, especially if it's a longer-term employee or someone who's been with you at least for a few months, if you're not happy with them, even if you're not saying anything, they're picking up on that a bit. You're walking by their desk faster every time you go by. You're avoiding them. You're pretending to be happy maybe when you're really not. They're picking up on this. I just think it's not fair. So if you're going to be letting somebody go, number one, they should be being told, or that you're unhappy with them rather, they should be being told that you're unhappy so that they can do something about it in order to correct it. Which brings us to the point. Let's say you have been doing that. This person is not working out, or you just have somebody who's not performing. Should you hang on to that non-performing person until you bring in another person? Or even further, should I use that non-performing person to train the new person? If you ask me, I would say absolutely not. If I have somebody who's not doing a good job and I've decided we're done, we're done. I'm going to let them go and they're going to be moving on. And I'm absolutely not going to be using them or asking them to train the new person. And let's say I have a receptionist and they're just doing a terrible job answering the phones. Calls are coming in and prospective new patients or whatever, and they're just blowing these people off left and right. This person is not helping the practice. I would be better served having one of my other team members answer the phone, or bringing in a temp most likely to answer the phone at that point because they are performing so poorly. So in my opinion, no, I would move on immediately and not wait until I got a replacement to replace this person. That would be the advice I would give a client. But what about if somebody gives notice? Let's talk about that for a second just to end this thing off. So I come to you and I give you my 2 weeks notice. Well, in my opinion, notice is situational. This is, again, a lot of this is just my opinion, which is why I recommended you get an employment attorney, right? Or have one at least. Notice is situational. Let's say I have an employee and they've been very productive, they've performed well, and they have to leave because their spouse is moving across the country for a great opportunity and they're going to go with them. Am I going to accept their notice and let them work out the last 2-3 weeks or however long notice they gave me? Yes, I most likely will, because this person's been a good performing employee, and if they didn't have a situation that was making them leave, they'd probably stay. So of course, I'm going to keep them as long as I can because I don't want them to go. I'm going to ask them to document everything that they've done on their job so I can turn it over to the new person who's going to take that job. I'm going to ask if they can help me train the new person when they come in because this person's been a valuable part of my practice. Might even have a little lunch or dinner for them before they go with the entire team to say goodbye. But what about somebody who comes in and says, I was looking for another job, I didn't tell you, and I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice because I'm taking a job at the practice down the street. Would I accept that notice? Again, these are all my opinions. I most likely would not. I would want to move on as quickly as possible. Now, when you're dealing with a provider, that might be a bit difficult, especially, and usually a provider is going to give you more than 2 weeks notice, especially an associate doctor. But in that case, the person has checked out. They've left because they've just decided that they're leaving. In which case, I'm going to want to move on quickly because, if you look at it, any type of a relationship, but specifically an employer-employee relationship, beyond the working together and being a team and that camaraderie you have, there is a transactional aspect to it. If I work for you and I hate my job and you create a really toxic or terrible working environment, what can I do? I can quit. Okay, that's the freedom that I have, unless I'm under some type of a contract or something like that. But similarly, if I have an employee, at least, and again, this is why I say have an employment attorney, and they're doing a terrible job, and I'm not happy with them at all, I can also move on, all right? That performance aspect, not just from the employee, but also from me as an employer, has to play out so that we can continue to work together. Well, in the case of somebody who's just gone down the street and accepted another job without telling me and now tells me they're going to leave, they've already checked out. They're done. They're moving on. So I'm going to want to move on as quickly as possible. So generally speaking, if you were to ask me personally, do I accept notice? It's situational. But if a person is just checked out and says that, that they're leaving, I usually don't accept notice. I say thank you, and I let them move on. And I just figure it out until I can get somebody to replace them. That's just generally the way that I've operated. Whether you want to do that or not is completely up to you. So that's sort of how I would handle this. But keep in mind, if you have somebody who is not performing, this is the most, if I were to look at the biggest hole in all of this, where people make the biggest mistake, is if I have somebody who's not performing or not doing a good job, you should be talking to this person to help them start to perform. Maybe you'll find that there's something about their job they really just don't understand. You handle that, and then all of a sudden they start to perform. I'm going to do everything in my power to help a team member be successful on their job. Does it always work out? No. but it's not going to be because of anything that I did. That's always the viewpoint that I have. Anyway, that's all I have for you in this week's tip. I hope that helps. If you have questions about MGE or want to know more, you can find us online at mgeonline.com or call us at 800-640-1140. And if you like tips like this and would like to see future ones, don't forget to subscribe and click the notifications button so you're informed every time we release a new one. Have a great week. We'll see you at the next tip.